I'm here with Santiago Giraldo, the CFO of Tecnoglass. Thank you again for having us back here in your offices during this interesting year of 2020. Congratulations, because even though it's been a challenging year for everybody on so many different fronts, it still has been a banner year for Tecnoglass. I think that a lot of people expected the building products industry, whether it's focused on commercial or residential or industrial, to follow a lot of other industries and have a down year. But no, you guys have bucked the trend, and it's been a banner year for you also. First, congratulations, but tell me how the year, here we are in the fourth quarter, how things have maybe turned out, taking into account the pandemic and you guys were shut down here for 2 or 3 weeks. Taking into account all of that, has this year met expectations or has it exceeded expectations? What is your take on how this year has been so far with regards to Tecnoglass and all the challenges that you and the whole industry have faced?
Sure. Well, yeah, thanks for having us again. Obviously, this year has been challenging for everybody, but if you were to ask me, I think this year has met expectations and actually surpassed expectations. If we were to talk about what our projection for the year was in terms of EBITDA and other metrics, we're going to land pretty much where we're going to, or where we were expecting to at the beginning of the year. We had less revenues in the year because you mentioned that we were shut down for 3 weeks, and it's obviously hard to recover and recoup that time. But from a profitability perspective, we're going to be in line, if not better, than we had projected at the beginning of the year. That's a result of many things. We invested in automation last year, so that's helping quite a bit with raw material cost, waste, headcount is obviously being optimized, energy costs have gone down. So those initiatives that we invested on as far as automation goes have played out much better than we had expected. As a result, what we're thinking is that we end up maybe 10 to 15% lower in sales, but if you're to look at our adjusted EBITDA, we're going to be up 7 to 8% from 2019. So, our business is divided in really 2 segments, the commercial and the residential. On the commercial segment, what we are invoicing right now are projects that were booked many months ago.
Okay.
12, 18 months ago. So the effects of the pandemic are not necessarily seen today because the construction in the US kept going, right? I mean, it was considered an essential business and it never stopped. The US has been close to 95% of our revenues this year. And we'll talk about what LATAM and Colombia are doing, but the US kept going very strongly. So we were able just to execute the backlog that we had at hand, right? I mean, it's not a business that you book overnight and you expect to get business, from 1 week to the next, right? I mean, it's something that we were already kind of booking, and something that these buildings were already well underway, right? So cancellations don't take place.
Right.
By the time that we get involved, I mean, these buildings are well off the ground. So, this year was really more of the same, just continue to execute. On the resi side, different story, because this is much more short nature, much more spot type of business.
Right.
But that is an area that is outperforming the economy as a whole. If you look at what's happening with home builders, low mortgage rates, low interest rates are driving a pretty healthy growth on the single family residential segment. So we're taking the opportunity to basically grow as that particular segment is growing. So all in all, I think that we ended up much better than we could have expected from kind of everything that's going on. And that's related to solid execution, the fact that the US continued to push forward. LATAM on the other end has been very slow to recover. A lot of our clients just haven't got up to par as far as being able to operate under safety standards related to COVID. So that's been slow. I mean, Q2 was really non-existent. That was 2% of our business. Q3, LATAM was 7% of our business. So it's trending in the right direction. but it's still not where it was pre-COVID. So luckily, we're much more exposed to the US, which is over 90% of our business, and that business continues to move forward. I think, what's important now is how fast can we replenish our backlog, the backlog that is being consumed. How fast are our clients going to be able to sign new contracts to go from what's pipeline or what are quotations into what is backlog. So that's where we are. All in all, I would tell you a very positive year.
I think though that even still, I don't know how concerned you are about the backlog, because if I remember from the last numbers, it's still over 560 million, right? So you have a very healthy backlog. So it looks like that even going into, you're going to go into 2021 in a very strong position.
Yeah, so we reported closer to 540. What you don't get to capture there is the residential backlog, because residential is so short term,
right,
that you don't get to fully capture your next 12 months of revenues, right? The only thing that you could put in there are your orders that are already into production, and that's a very small amount in comparison to what we're expecting to sell for a full year. To give you some perspective, I think what is captured in the Q3 backlog related to single family residential is less than 10 million, but we're gonna do about 75 to 80 million of revenues for the full year. So even though our backlog is 536 million as of September, which basically carry us all the way through the rest of 2020 and pretty much the majority of 2021, we should expect to see revenues coming from the single family residential that is not captured there. So you're right, but what we want to make sure is that 2022 starts kind of building up, right? Because we're going to start going through this existing backlog, but this business, you have to kind of work every day to make sure that you replenish what you are invoicing.
Right.
So another way to put it is, this is a short-term versus long-term dilemma. The short-term is pretty much played out with what we have. The long-term, the 22 and on, is basically what we have to work on today, and that's when, where we have to make sure that things continue to normalize and conditions continue to move in the right direction.
I think though that with residential being a growth area for Tecnoglass, because the company's roots and history has been, in my understanding, has been largely commercial. And so now going into Tecnoglass, that's creating a new opportunity for you, as well as you go into new markets inside of North America, inside of the US. Because even though you have a strong US presence, over 90% of your business in the US, you're not well represented into other regions in the US, and so it still is a growth market for the company, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we look at the US as our growth market for the next 5 to 10 years. I think all that you see here, 2.7 million square feet of just PP&E land equipment that we have basically built over time, is designed to service the US, right? I mean, we love to serve LATAM, we're here in Colombia, love to do things here, but all of this capacity is destined for the US market. The US market is about $25 billion per year in sales between product sales and installation. And we're selling 350 million a year, so we're 1.5% of the market. Not necessarily all of that market is the target market that we're basically focused on, right? It's not all addressable, but the point is that it's a much larger market. And you said it. I mean, we historically had concentrated in commercial, and within commercial, very focused in Florida. Now we're looking to be much more diversified. The Northeast, Chicago, Texas, the West Coast, and with Resi is just the tip of the iceberg so far. I mean, if you look at our main competitor in the same market and the same product type, they do about 700 million in sales on Resi alone, and we're doing 75 million this year, so 1/10 of what our main competitor does. So still a lot of upside. I mean, we don't see that even on their downside case scenario, we should not be able to grow. I think it's difficult. I mean, it's definitely more challenging, because I think a lot of people and a lot of our clients are taking a wait and see approach to have more visibility. But from a market size perspective, the potential to continue growing is there.
I think another thing too is that even if you look at the new administration coming in that has stated a higher focus on energy efficiency, Tecnoglass has these low E, and I'm not a glass expert, but my understanding is highly energy efficient glass, and these products that can help builders meet LEED certifications, that can create very low emissions buildings, that can reduce their footprint. And so I think that creates additional opportunity for the company as well.
Absolutely, and with the mandate from the new president-elect to spend significantly in global warming, in green, in green buildings as a whole, this whole initiative where there's going to be trillions of dollars being spent in going green can only favor our business. You mentioned it. A lot of what is being done right now, as far as architectural glass goes, is related to low emissivity glass, because people want LEED certifications, they want to be green, they want to save on energy cost, and that's a lot of what we do. I mean, we bought our own glass coater to make low emissivity glass 4 or 5 years ago. And that coater still has ways to grow before it's fully utilized. So we're counting on this being a tailwind to our business.
You know, you just mentioned something right there, and that is that you continue to make capital investment, you continue in growth mode, you just purchased land for the new factory that you guys have planned. And so tell me a little bit, I know that you guys have Vidrio Andino, I think, is the joint venture that you have with Saint Gobain. Tell me what this new partnership will allow you to do. And my understanding is that the company you already have a broad product lineup between glass itself and the aluminum products that go along with glass, but you're going to be more vertically integrated, is my understanding, with this factory, and it'll allow you to be in a much better position when it comes to either quality control, but when it comes to really being able to control everything from, and again, I'm not forgive me for not being a glass expert, from the sand to the finished product. What's the plan there and the rationale behind the new investment?
Right, so it's been a long-term strategy of the company to be fully vertically integrated. So we started out assembling windows. Over time, we developed a glass transformation operation. Subsequently, we developed an aluminum transformation operation. We bought basically our own installer in the US. We bought our own distributor. The one thing that was missing was the first stage of the supply chain, which was basically being able to transform sand into glass. That's a whole different business that we don't want to operate, but we were able to participate there with this joint venture with Saint Gobain, which is a worldwide leader in this specific manufacturing piece. So it's encouraging to see that somebody like Saint Gobain, a $50 billion per year company, was interested in joining forces with Tecnoglass. It tells a lot about what they think about our trajectory, about our company. And doing that has two different benefits. One for Tecnoglass on a standalone basis, and one for the joint venture, right? So if we start with the Tecnoglass story on a standalone basis, it's going to have multiple advantages. It's going to give us a long-term supply, stable supply, which obviously with everything going on with trade, is very important to have secure suppliers that are going to allow you not to have interruptions on your supply chain. So with this second factory in Colombia, we're going to be able to source 100% of our glass needs from Colombia, from our joint venture factories. Right now, we only source, probably 40 to 50% of what we need out of the existing factory. With the second one, given the fact that the first one is already at full capacity, with the second one, we're going to be able to source everything. We're going to be able to have stable pricing over 10 years. And we're going to be able to save money, because 30% or so of the cost of the glass that we purchase from Saint Gobain in Bogota is related to transportation.
Right.
So by having a factory next door, right off the bat, you're shaving off 30% of that cost. And with the second plant being built out, we're going to be able to source more jumbo-sized sheets of glass. which carry a much more efficient coefficient, basically, because you're able to utilize more part of the glass and you don't waste as much. So in other words, when you cut the glass sheets, not as much goes to waste. So
right.
we're able to save on both of those fronts. On the JV side, we're going to be benefited because what Saint Gobain is looking to do is basically grow their presence into the US, which is a segment, a geographical segment where they have not been able to penetrate the markets as much as many other areas throughout the world. So what they see in Tecnoglass is basically the ability to push their products through transformed glass that we make, right? So
okay.
if you can basically sell raw glass into the market, let's join forces with somebody that has a growth trajectory and just push it to them so they can transform it and sell the end product into that US market. So right now we're going to be able to join forces with a global leader that's going to probably establish their own sales force and whatnot, and we're going to be able to market together to grow the piece of the pie that we have there. So we see it as a win-win. We're in the process of completing permits, and both parties are basically assessing what things look like out there from a demand perspective, right? I mean, obviously, we were ready to go, and had not been for COVID, I think we will be 1-2 quarters removed from breaking ground and starting building this second facility. But it doesn't make sense doing it at any cost, right? I mean, you have to assess conditions, you have to analyze what demand looks like, and that's what we're doing. So hopefully, we'll be able to get more clarity and better visibility on things and move forward.
That's important. I think that's an important point, because a lot of times people hear, okay, Saint Gobain's doing a joint venture with Tecnoglass, and people in the US or people in the investment community might go, oh, well, Saint Gobain is helping Tecnoglass. But no, Tecnoglass is helping Saint Gobain as much, if not more. I mean, we don't want to make that judgment,
right.
but it still is a win-win situation, because both sides are gaining something there that they maybe don't have. And so it makes sense. It really isn't a big brother, little brother thing. It really is kind of a mutual, a real synergy, and a project that brings companies together on an equal footing.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a true joint venture. I mean, I don't think a company of this magnitude is going to do things just to do somebody a favor, right? I mean, they have to do their own analysis and understand what value added comes out of it for them. So yeah, I think they're going to be benefited. The other thing is that the existing factory is at full capacity, as I was mentioning. They service, Ecuador, they service Colombia, they service whatever's being done in Venezuela, but they're at full capacity right now, and they see an opportunity to service the Caribbean, to service the Central American region, obviously to penetrate the US market. So they see this as an opportunity to grow, right? And the fact that we're going to be joining forces with them allows them to have some security that some of that production is going to be sold, right? Because we're going to enter into an offtake agreement that guarantees that the JV and the new factory specifically is going to have the required returns. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win, and obviously they have a lot of know-how. They have a long-term trajectory, and just being associated with a global leader can only help the brand.
Coming over here today, we passed by the large new monument that the company donated to the city of Barranquilla.
Yeah.
I think Barranquilla, it's the largest city on the Atlantic. Cartagena is probably more famous with people who don't know Colombia well, but this is really the industrial heart of Colombia. It's also it has an advantageous location on the port. It's a city that's on the move. There's a new convention center. There's a new Malecón, which is like a waterfront park. Mm-hmm. I see that there are new sports arenas in the works. You guys are a big supporter, I think, of Junior, which is the national soccer team. Or not the national, but the soccer team for in the National League here. And it's one thing that and I think I've mentioned this to you before, but the company does a lot of things very quietly as far as supporting the community, as supporting the local citizenry and beyond your employees, where you were able to keep everybody fully employed and taken care of during the pandemic. But beyond that, because the company has been busy anyway, which is great to see, but you guys have quietly done a lot of things here in the community as far as families. And I know you don't do it for publicity, you don't do it for marketing. That's why I want to bring it up, because I know that you wouldn't bring it up on your own, but I think that it's important that people understand the social component. It's not a company that goes out there and goes, look at us, we're do-gooders. But the company, aside from the environmental impact, the positive environmental impact that you have, you guys, I want to commend you, and I want you to at least speak briefly on some of the things that you've done this year to have a positive impact in this challenging time, where a lot of people on the coast were between Santa Marta and Cartagena, and this is still a tourism-driven region where a lot of people have been impacted. But you guys really stepped up and went above and beyond expectations as far as helping support not just the local economy, but local families in need.
Absolutely. I mean, these are unprecedented times. I think a lot of people are having a really hard time, and for us to be in the position where we're at, having really a record year, amidst this whole COVID situation, is a privilege. I mean, it could have been that we were in a total different industry, targeting a different market, and that would not be the case. So I think we're very lucky to be where we are. But even before COVID, I think this is part of the DNA of the company. This is something where we feel that, giving back to the community is obviously the right thing. I think this is probably the largest, if not, probably top 2 or 3 employers in the region. Mm-hmm. And it's something that makes you proud, and I know it's something that the Dias family, is really focused on, and being a philanthropic type company is front and center to what we want to do, right? I mean, it's not that let's get richer and make more profit, where the surrounding areas are not kind of thriving and having a better time, or even just barely surviving. I mean, I think we want to promote sustainability, we want to promote growth. Barranquilla is one of the places really in Colombia and LATAM that over the last couple of years have had a lot of success kind of growing sustainable strategies. I think the public investment is shown. I mean, you can see definitely a change in the city. And being one of the largest companies in the city, puts you in a position to help out. I mean, Tecnoglass is very recognized around here, and I think it's just the right thing to help out, to help promote wellness, to do what we can. And obviously this year, there was more hardship than many others. So yeah, I think it's at the front and center, at the heart of the strategy, of the DNA of the company. Just having a sustainable and responsible strategy makes sense. At the end of the day, we want kind of everybody around us, our employees and all of our stakeholders to do well. So to the point that we can continue doing that, and I know the Dias family will want to continue contributing as much as possible. That's why you should see from Tecnoglass going forward. And like you said, it's not something that you do for publicity,
right?
Because that is really not the end game. I mean, you just want the people to be better, and the people that we can help,
right? Not
necessarily try to be out there on the press showing up these results for different purposes, right?
You guys are around 6,000 employees, more or less, right now, right?
About 5,000, yes.
About 5,000. One of the largest employers in Colombia, I think, and especially if you take outside of things like retail chains or grocery store chains or something like that. Certainly in the top 10, if not the top 5 largest employers and certainly largest industries. And it's fascinating because Colombia is it's changing now, but it has not traditionally been outside of the textile industry. It hasn't really been an export-oriented economy. That's changed in the last couple of decades, and it's good to see that Tecnoglass is really a leader in that. It's on NASDAQ, it's TGLS. It's a company that we followed for some time, really impressive, and so I thank you for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. More to come.
Absolutely.